So, thank you everyone for joining today. I am Prithu. I am the recipient of IFA Arts Research Grant this year. And thank you everyone for turning up at this Friday afternoon. And we look forward to have a wonderful time ahead because there will be lots of activities over a year and more. There is the project itself comprises of 18 months, and there are lots of activities that we are trying to look into. So I will just try to go through whatever our plans are for this project, and just skim through because I don't want to also take much time, because the website, when the will inaugurate the website, you will be able to see all the plans that we have at our disposal. Whatever we have framed for, those are laid on the website itself, so you can follow for yourself. So having said that, without further ado, I am trying to delineate what our plans are for this entire project period, for the grant period. So we are trying to first begin with a radical question, radical, or in certain sense you can say also provocative, a provocative question, because the idea, if I ask you, what do you understand by the idea of artist, an artist, who is an artist? So largely the idea that will pop in your head must be someone with a painting brush, or someone who is maybe a person who we traditionally associate with the artistic figure. They will have a certain kind of attire, certain kind of dialect, certain kind of aura or persona. If I want to propose that whether we can consider the social media content creators, the influencers, as the new age artists, so that might come across as something very radical. Of course, I do understand for the caveat, for the double thoughts that are coming in your mind. But that is precisely what we are trying to do here, because we have seen over the years, as technology has proceeded, at one point people were drawing on easel, and then when iPad came, they started drawing on iPad. So that doesn't diminish the person's utilization of the device, that doesn't diminish the talent that the person possesses. So that is one of the propositions that we have, or one of the proposals that we have, to rethink the concept of art practice from a digital platform's perspective. What have been the changes that had happened in the digital platform in recent years, where whether there are the questions of caste, whether there are questions of caste, how are we, as Ezra Klein would like to ask or posit this question in his book, why are we so polarized? He would like to ask, I'd like to answer that we are so polarized as American citizen. Of course, he answered that we are polarized because the algorithm itself is feeding us within a loop, within a feedback loop. So whatever content that we are consuming, those are making us the people that we are. So also the art forms we are consuming online, the contents that we are consuming online, those are also making us in certain sense. As the famous Greek philosopher Yannis Varoufakis would love to say, and Dibyadyuti would definitely explain on AI. AI is something which is teaching us to teach them to teach us. So now the subject and object positions are totally reversed. And in this economy, what is the role of an artist? Who do we or should we consider as an artist? These are the questions that we will be like looking into over 1 year and 6 months. So some of the activities that we have at our disposal, that we will be following up. I will try to pinpoint what are the activities that we are trying to do here. First, there is this, of course, inaugural talk that Dibyadyuti will deliver here, which will set the stage as in how digital humanities in today's time can be reimagined as a space where public and academia, public and private, can merge. Academia and the practitioner, they can merge, and whether there is a space for synthesis that is possible, and what is the interrelation between English and the Bhasha languages, the the vernaculars, for instance, how they amalgamate with each other, how they synthesize with each other. Those are the questions that we will be very interested in looking into. The Buddha will all, of course, will delineate that. And after the inaugural talk, there will be an inaugural workshop where we will try to come up with some newer methods, methodologies. What are the methods which are being used right now currently to understand social media? As we know, what are the newer methods which have emerged in terms of understanding social media? That also will be taken by one leading scholar that we will announce soon. After that, we will move to a machine translation workshop where one leading machine translation machine translation uh, computer scientist. He will take a 5 day intensive workshop where 30 people will come together in a closed room, and they will have an intensive session where this 30 translator, they will bring forth the perspective from a translator's perspective. People from comparative literature, English, Bengali, they will join largely who had experience in translation, and they will put forth their own ideas of translation, the caveats, the shortcomings, the advantages. Alongside that, there will also be this leading machine translation theorist or person who has developed extensively worked on machine translation. He will show how machine translation actually works from machine's perspective. And after going through for 5 days, there will be a report which will be published and which I will present to IFA. So that is another part, which is a 5 day machine translation workshop. Then there is this amalgamation of everything, which is a 1 day international conference, where it will be of course conducted in a hybrid form, where we will try to find out newer frameworks. And as we know, the frameworks that we use, say for instance understanding the American social media, will not be applicable for India. What we understand to like what is the social media's landscape in a particular Bhasha space, that cannot be replicated of course in another Bhasha space. One state's digital media consumption pattern that might not be replicative enough for another state's social media consumption pattern. So what are the differences? From coming from that perspective, we will definitely look forward to have a productive discussion in that conference. And I am extremely grateful that Professor Devapriya Basu from IIT Guwahati, she has agreed to be the lead editor for the volume, where Devapriya and also Spandanda is present here. He is an assistant professor from Leeds. So we will co-edit a volume where we are also very much looking forward to have Professor Dibyadyuti Roy's contribution as well. If Dr. Roy, he has been extremely, he has been a person, a beacon of hope, a beacon of guide who has shepherded the entire project from the very beginning. The moment I received the project's grant, the very acceptance letter, I had reached out to him for suggestions, and he had been very helpful, extremely helpful to guide me throughout the entire steps. So that is a part where we want to produce a kind of vocabulary, critical vocabulary, some kinds of newer frameworks where we can understand how Bengali digital culture functions in certain sense. So apart from these three, there are another two more components. One is a 12-month lecture series where people coming from corporate media, coming from media practitioner, editors, social media content creators, they will come and deliver a lecture, one person a month. This is a 12-month lecture series that will also parallelly go on. And apart from this, there is a interview component that will be where we will take interview of 10 YouTubers, in-depth interview about what has been the negotiations of public and private life after they found fame, and what has been the relationship with the money. Things those are non-glamorous things, which I think which are important, more important from a scholarly perspective. Also, it should not be very academic in nature, that kind of caveat, because IF's goal is to also open up alternative ways of discussion, how we can reimagine arts research in India. What are the alternative ways apart from academia that we can engage arts with? So these are the things that we will keep our minds in, and we will be very open to have any kind of contribution, because any project as such, what we have embarked on, cannot it is impossible to embark on a journey like that alone. So it has been a collaborative process. As people say, it takes a child to raise, it takes a village to raise a child. It's a project like that. It requires cumulative effort from everyone. And since we all are Bengali here, we have assembled, I think we have this interest, active interest in our own language. And also I will take this opportunity to extend this productive opportunity to have engagement with other people who are joining from other states, to have a discussion, have a productive discussion, what has been the development happening in other states as well, so that we can carry forward that kind of conversation as well. So that's all for me. Thank you so much. The person that I wanted to refer to is Somojit, who has been a research associate and throughout been a backbone of mine. So coming from there, I would like to now ask Dibyadyuti, are you there? Hello. Hi. Yeah. So sorry, I have taken a bit of time, but now I will take this opportunity to just invite you to officially like reveal the official logo and the website that we are very much looking forward to. And it is a happy occasion that I'm extremely grateful that he has consented to open or inaugurate or launch our project officially here. So, Dibyadyuti, please.
Yeah, Ritu, thank you so much for that invitation. And maybe I can request you to your screen. And I think because I am merely as a facilitator, but I'm very grateful for the invitation. So I would request maybe you can share your screen and all your project associates, your project leaders are here, colleagues from IFA are here. So I think I'm merely a facilitator here, but I'm very happy to have this opportunity and I welcome and I invite you to kindly share the logo and the website.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dibyadyuti. I'm just give me a bit of time. I'm trying to, um, yeah. So, uh, is my screen visible? Okay, thank you. So, uh, like unfortunately, I think Sambida couldn't join. He told me he would like to, but he couldn't. Who is the designer of this logo? And his thought behind this logo was largely that since whenever we imagine the concept of scope, say microscope, telescope, he of course imagined a periscope. It has a geometric pattern in it. So he was like, it, since it has to do with technology, there should be some kind of geometry in it. So the logo itself is designed as a combination of only straight lines, or straight lines are used throughout the logo. And also who have grown up studying or reading Professor Sonku, the Satyajit Ray's famous creation, we would also be able to relate to the scribbling lines of calligraphy that Satyajit Ray used to do for Professor Sonku's name logo. So this logo also reminds us of Professor Sonku's calligraphy that was done by Satyajit Ray in certain sense. So where we see, like, it is in certain sense the imagination, or the imagination of the past about the future. So that we are trying to bring forth here. So that's the logo written in Bhashascope. Thank you so much, Dibyadyuti. I don't want to take much time. And along with that, I think you can copy paste the website. Maybe if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, just
Thank
paste
you
it.
so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. So everyone present here, you can just click on the website. Now our website is live. Of course, it's not complete yet. There are lots of these events. The event pages are just blank. You can just scroll up the entire. If you open the website, you will inevitably see the image which is behind is the image of Jantar Mantar. People who have watched Gopigan Hirok Raja, they will know the famous Gopigan Bhagavan trilogy. There is this machinery called Jantar Mantar, where you actually put a person inside and that person will be brainwashed. It is just a kind of metaphor you can see of ideological state apparatus or something like that. You put people inside and they will be brainwashed coming out from that. So it is one of the brilliant ideas that Satyajit Ray had, and we living in the age of brain rot, what else could be a more viable imagination or cultural reference that we could put tribute to? So I think that that's the reason it is in the backdrop, and Bhashascope is the website that will act as a digital reservoir of all the things, all the activities that we'll keep doing. Thank you so much, Dibyadyuti. Thank you so much for inaugurating it, for sharing this logo. And since Samvidha is not here, I would like to ask ma'am, ma'am, are you there? Dibyadyuti ma'am?
Yes, Pritu, I'm there.
Yeah, yeah. So, Professor Vibhuti Mary Kachchap is actually my supervisor. She is my supervisor here at IIT Tirupati. And without her active encouragement, support, and endorsement, I wouldn't be able to actually pull up this thing. She had allowed me extensively to just explore my side quest here at the final year of PhD. So, for that, I am extremely thankful to her. And I would just ask ma'am to say a few words. Just very briefly. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Pritu, to let me speak 2 minutes here. And yeah, I would like to correct Pritu said that I allowed. I don't consider myself to be like a like a teacher, rather a facilitator who, if doesn't facilitate the outside ventures, then we are no longer human beings. That's what I consider. So, anyways, just to take 2 minutes of your time, talking about, as Pritu began with, who is an artist. Now, in the landscape of digital humanities, I kind of work in the domain of little bit of what we can call popular culture. So while we discuss popular culture, there's something called celebrity culture and emerging influence culture. So we see that there's a blurring of line which is happening because of the effect of digital humanities or social media, as you can say. Celebrities have become influencers, and influencers have become celebrities via their acting roles that they are currently getting in films, or let's say and Netflix shows. So, who is an artist is the question, and I will not be able to answer as of now to whom to call an artist. So, what I would like this platform to emerge as something which is very regional, as Prithu already mentioned, the Bhasha scope, which is relevant to the discourse of language. Now, myself, coming from the state of Jharkhand, which has so much so tribal heritage and so much so tribal languages, which through such platforms can get a second life, as I would like to say. Recently in Chhattisgarh, there's a museum which is using AI, to talk about the digital storytelling techniques, where they have this AI tool immersion, where they can look into the history of their tribal leaders. And that also brings us to think about how digital humanities is reforming, restructuring, archiving, or let's say folklore or folk tales. So I would just end with that, and I congratulate everyone in Prithu's team and Dr. Dibyadyuti to be, associated with this program. And yeah, that's all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for the kind words. After Professor Kachap, I would love to ask Harshita, who had been extremely helpful from the very beginning. She has been a program officer, and it has been almost 6 months that we have been in discussion. She had led me, kind of shepherded me throughout the entire way, how I should proceed, how not to, what are the ideas. So I would like to ask or invite her to come here to deliver uh, a small brief overview of how IFA looks at arts research. Because over the period of discussion, what I have understood, IFA looks at arts research from a very avant-garde, interesting, path-breaking way. It is not like what something that we do in academia largely. So, what is arts research from IFS perspective? Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Prithu. Thank you. And good evening to everybody present here. It's lovely to finally see faces who are part of the project. And we also have other colleagues from IFA who have kindly joined the meeting today. And some previous colleagues whom I have known from my own research days are also here. So it's nice to see everyone. And regarding your question, Prithu, about arts research, I would say that the one thing that distinguishes how IFA understands research in the arts is dissemination, the aspect of the public aspect. So the idea is not to just do work inside your own domain, inside your own discipline, but also to share. So sharing of the knowledge that is produced is a very integral part of the work that is done. And so execution or ground level dissemination becomes very important. And a project like yours aligns very well because something that has to do with digital media has to have a community around it and has to have some sort of knowledge sharing. So this idea of knowledge, not just as a production of knowledge, but also sharing as an integral part of research becomes a distinguishing factor of arts research as IFA understands it. And second thing is also we like to keep the definition of research flexible because there is a lot of ways in people understand research in the country. There is sociological research, there is historical, artistic research also is not very well defined because it overlaps with methods from different fields. So we borrow, while we borrow, and historically have been borrowing methods from different fields for doing arts research. In IFA, we also like to encourage practitioners to apply so that they can bring their own insights, fresh insights from their practice and from their lived experience of doing something to make their own methods out of that practice. So it's not just taking methods that have been practiced and that has been tested with time, but also to bring up new methods and to look at how art of the future looks like. So this is a very integral inquiry of arts research and should be in a country like in a post-colonial country, a post-colonial perspective, that what is the future of arts or what is the medium of arts in the future. So these are some questions that this year we are focusing on through the RFP.
मैं अगर क्लास में भी रहूं तो मुझे बुला लेना.
And yeah, somebody's mic is on. So that's all. I think I won't take much time. And if anybody has any questions or queries and would like to get in touch, of course, Prithu can give details regarding our website, and you can of course get in touch with me directly, and we can discuss more about what are the programs at IFA through which we support projects. So over to you, Prithu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Harshita. I think that was a brief, succinct, and the best way in which it can be put forward how IFA understands. Of course, she's extremely open and like amicable, and anyone who wants to reach out to her, I think she will definitely help you with the research journey. So with that, I think it's finally time to Dibyadyuti's talk that we all have been waiting for. There had been lots of I am seeing also some of my friends who have joined here. They have been also eagerly waiting for this talk and asking me. So thank you so much to just taking out time from your busy schedule. And also I want to also highlight this thing that also highlights the graciousness of Dibyadyuti is that he's doing it pro bono, like that he didn't require to, but he just wanted to help the project, a mini project like ours. And from the very beginning, there's the graciousness. I wanted to say that I feel extremely grateful that he is doing it for us. So now I think it's
let's
over
save
to
the thanks for after the talk. The talk may not be as good as you're putting it out to be, but I'll try.
no, no, no.
Thank
I think everyone is looking forward to. Thank you. I think over to you. Yeah, thank you.
So, firstly, thank you so much, Prithu. And my name is Dr. Dibyadyuti Roy. I'm an associate professor at the University of Leeds. And I'm really grateful to Prithu, the Indie Foundation for Arts, Dr. Bathwal, Professor Bibhuti. I see a lot of friends. Shout out to Ritvika from IFA, who's also here. I can see her in the chat room. So I'm grateful to see both old and new friends. Because the event is putting forward the launch of Platform Bengali, I will also introduce myself in Bengali and then move back to English. আমার নাম ডক্টর দিব্যদ্যুতি রায়। আমি বর্তমানে যুক্তরাজ্যের লিডস বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে সহযোগী অধ্যাপক হিসেবে কর্মরত। আজ প্ল্যাটফর্ম বেঙ্গলির এই উদ্বোধনী অনুষ্ঠানে আমাকে এই বক্তৃতা দেওয়ার জন্য এই আমন্ত্রণ দেওয়ার জন্য অত্যন্ত কৃতজ্ঞ পৃথুর কাছে, ইন্ডিয়া ফাউন্ডেশন অফ আর্টসের কাছে এবং সুধীবৃন্দ যারা আজ এসছেন তাদের সাথে আজকে আলাপ আলোচনা এবং কিছু কথাবার্তা এআই নিয়ে বা কৃত্রিম বুদ্ধিমত্তা নিয়ে আজ আমরা করব এবং তার সাথে বৈদ্যুতিন মানববিদ্যা বা ডিজিটাল হিউম্যানিটিজের কি সংযোগ বা কি হয়ে উঠতে পারে এই আলোচনাগুলি, সেগুলো নিয়ে আজ আমরা কথা বলবো। I'll switch back into English right now because through IFA we are reaching out into multiple languages. And as Harshita pointed out, I think it's a very important conversation because personally, I've been very fortunate to work across multiple contexts. I've taught in the IIM system, I've taught in the IIT system. I now teach in a liberal arts system, and in fact in a school of fine art, history of art and cultural studies. So my location is quite opportune in terms of the conversations today. But without providing further details, let me just go into the body of the talk. So for today, as you can see, my talk is titled Designs Taken for Wonders, Provocations on AI, Language and Authority. Just to point out very briefly, my research and teaching examines cultural mediations offer about dominant and emergent technologies, their genealogies, narratives, and legacies. As I tell my students, if this sentence is difficult to read, it should be, because it took me about 8 years to frame, because normally that's how long it takes to find out what you really work on. So started my PhD on nuclear cultures. Then I moved into digital spaces, worked quite a bit on race, gender, colonialism, and digital spaces. For the last about 6 to 7 years, I've been working on social media, digitality, and largely algorithmic cultures. I've been very fortunate to be part of India's first, or the founding member of India's first digital humanities collective called Dharti, which was originally called DHAI. And DHAI, I was very fortunate to do DHAI's first conference, so the inauguration reminds me of the excitement of launching a new initiative. So DHAI started out at IIM Indore, and in collaboration with IIT Indore, the first conference. We then became Dharti, and Dharti has done 2 conferences till then, and we are in fact coming out with a 3rd conference later in the year. I'm still the vice president and a founding member. I've also been fortunate to be published across all major volumes on digital humanities, including the research, teaching, as well as volumes that are more practice-based. As Harshita pointed out, a very important component of what IFA does for the country, and we are extremely privileged, I think, as a country to have IFA, because the work that IFA does in bringing forward what is called practice-based research is critical. And I think this is something that I've been trying to talk about for the last 3 years. I've been doing the assessment of digital humanities as a field for the Oxford Journal, the year's work in critical and cultural theory. And as part of that, with my colleague, Professor Aditya Deshbandhu, who's at Exeter, we've been trying to understand what are the intersections between digitality and critical AI studies. And in many ways, today I'm going to focus largely on the critical AI studies portion of things. But I'm very happy, hopefully, to have a few questions around the intersections, because that would take a full days of workshop, not maybe one talk, right? That would be difficult. But again, thank you. So at Leeds, I am part of this hub called the Digital Creativity and Cultures Hub. This is where digital humanities is based at Leeds, and it's a multi-faculty center. So if you're interested in knowing more, please do reach out to me. I also run a series called Deliberations in Digitality, where I try to focus on voices in and from the majority world. As you can see, this was an event a couple of years ago where we have colleagues and very good feminist scholars of digitality coming across from all across the world and joining in and talking about these issues. I also do quite a bit of work outside the institution, so not my first pro bono gig. So Prithu, not that this I'm doing for the first time. So again, I've been speaking across countries and contexts on digital humanities. For example, in the Indian context, I believe that digital humanities is quite rhizomatic. It doesn't have a primary or secondary root. It emerges like ginger from various sites and creates flights of connection. And that's what the strength of Indian digital humanities or post-colonial digital humanities is. In the last year, the last couple of years, I've also been invited to speak at UNESCO and Carnegie Council invited events on AI for information accessibility from grassroots to policy action. Happy to speak about that at a later time. For the last, as I said, 5 to 6 years, my work has largely focused on what we understand as critical AI studies. This emerged from my work as when I was recognized as an affiliate by the Data and Society Research Center in the US. I worked with them to create a new primer to teach AI from the majority world. And majority world is a term that we increasingly use in place of global south or the third world. Majority world was first used by Shahidul Alam, the Bangladeshi photographer, who pointed out that why should we call ourselves the global south or the third world when a majority of the world's population live in our parts of the world, by which he meant Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So majority world is a term that I'm more comfortable with rather than global south or third world. We also worked on a joint project called Parables of AI in and from the majority world, an anthology. And for the last couple of years, a project that has occupied a lot of my attention is a project that initially started out with the British Council on Museum Without Walls 2.0. It was all called affective imaginings versus algorithmic interpretations, the diverse economies of interpreting art in online spaces. Since then, that led to a new project called Affect Algorithms and Archives, where I'm looking along with colleagues both in India and the UK on the idea of how metadata attributes that we are currently using are often constrained in their ability to provide entry points into cultural objects, and how affectual dimensions of viewers and audiences within museum spaces can be operationalized, hopefully, into creating new metadata attributes. This is an ongoing project. I'm currently in a tie-up with the University of Hamburg and working on this. So this is an ongoing project, but I'm happy to talk about it. But today we are going into sort of a more deep dive, as they say in the language of Gen Z, as I'm told, a deep dive into certain matters. But I start off with a question. The question that I have for you and for all audiences who are here in this room today, on your screen right now are two events that are separated by about 250 years. On your left is an event from the 18th century and early 18th century, when in Germany, more specifically in Austria, there was this new machine called the Mechanical Turk that was released as the first automatic chess player, right? And this was in the early 1780s. And this automatic chess player was put forward as something that, and it did for about 80 years. It was an unbeaten automatic chess player, as you can see, quite Orientalist in its creation, because it had the figure of a Turk, as you can see, possibly, not very clear, but a Turk who was put forward as the figure or the statue which would play chess, and there would be a human being opposite that. And to be fair, the Turk defeated people like Napoleon Bonaparte and Benjamin Franklin, and was undefeated for about 84 years till a certain incident happened. Now, on the right hand of your screen, the picture is from 2023. Amazon started this new set of shops called Just Walkout. As you might see from your screen, the Just Walkout stores are where you enter, shop, and go. So basically, this is a completely automated experience of shopping. And as you can see, the company advertises Just Walkout as practical AI for better retail experiences. Just Walkout technology combines AI, computer vision, sensor fusion, and RFID to deliver a friction-free shopping experience, by which friction I'm is assuming what is meant is human. Humans create friction, that seems to be the signifier or the signify, saving time for customers and streamlining operations for retailers. Now, I have a question for the audience. What is common to both of them across 250 years? You can put your thoughts in the chat box, or if you want, you can unmute yourself, show yourself on video, and respond as well. Both are invited. Maybe we'll take 10 seconds more. Again, 250 years, and I'm just looking for maybe something that you feel is common to both of them.
Automation.
Automation. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Preetu, for that response. So yes, if the narrative is of automation, what I would argue what is common to them is the fact that there is nothing artificial about artificial intelligence, right? The 1784 version of the Mechanical Turk, it was realized, had a human chess player who was inside the box, who was playing the chess. And the Amazon Just Walkout stores actually stopped in London last year when it was released that in April 2024, that human workers based in Gurgaon were actually looking at closed circuit cameras. And I hope you're able to see my screen, the left and the right hand side. We can see this news report from Mint, which says that Amazon's AI Just Walkout was powered by Indian workers manually who were looking at closed circuit cameras and actually creating the frictionless, humanless experience. So again, going back to that term, that there's nothing automatic about, or there's nothing artificial about artificial intelligence, I'd like to point out that more importantly, and I'm going to obviously paraphrase or rephrase that famous quote by Kevin Spacey from The Usual Suspect, that the greatest trick about the devil is that the devil convinced the world that the devil does not exist. Here, I'm going to say the greatest trick AI has ever pulled is convincing the world that AI exists, right? And which is why you would also realize the title of my talk today is taken from Homi Bhabha's famous essay, Science Taken for Wonders. And I do want to start with this opening quote that Bhabha has, where he says, a remarkable peculiarity is that they, the English, always write the personal pronoun I with a capital letter. May we not consider this great I as an unintended proof of how much an Englishman thinks of his own consequence, right? So right now we live in a world where apparently everything is AI, right? You have AI computers, AI shops, AI schools. I don't think just we have AI toilets yet, but I'm sure that's on the way. But that frivolity aside, what has that come from? What has that current age of AI come from? That's largely come from this rise of what we call as generative AI. Now, generative AI, as many of you might know, is based on a technology called large language models. And the access to generative AI, which was ideally started out with this company OpenAI opening out ChatGPT, large language model based chatbot, to the public in November of 2022, has led to this so-called revolution. And of course, there is an actual element of revolution. But what I'm trying to basically talk about in today's, in today's talk is much like the Wizard of Oz, when you realize that behind the Wizard of Oz, there was one person or there was one particular, I'm trying to basically demythologize and demystify, understand by AI, try to actually understand what can be read from the technology, what can be helpful for us as scholars of the humanities and social sciences, as well as scholars of art, culture, and the humanities. So on one hand of this AI revolution is this belief that AI is going to change everything, going to solve all problems. For example, the Brookings Institution says how artificial intelligence is transforming the world. So in a sense, there is a sense of the AI utopia, right? The AI boomers. On the other hand, you have people, and in fact, quite funnily, this letter was signed by Elon Musk on the right side, that you must pause AI developments, when he was thrown out of OpenAI before he had started his own company XAI. So on the other side, there's this sense of doom, right? This AI dystopia, that AI is going to stop, kill everything, take everybody's jobs. But beyond that, beyond this binary spectrum, there's the actual material infrastructure of AI. And I'm so glad that Professor Harshita mentioned Jharkhand. One of the movies that I would strongly recommend to everyone in this room today is a movie called Humans in the Loop by Sahai, which looks at data annotation that comes from Jharkhand, that actually powers the global North AI platforms. And it's a wonderful, wonderful documentary movie, which comes from an essay by Karishma Mehrotra called Human Touch. But we can go into that much later. But data annotation, again, forms the material infrastructure. And data annotation for AI happens again in the global South. In fact, the political economy of labor has not really changed. If it was sweatshops to call centers to data annotation in the global South, a lot of that still remains. And effectively, what this project, Platform Bengali, is trying to do, I'm so excited by, is bring back the conversation to multilingual spaces, because beyond responsible ethical AI, we also need contextual AI. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, talk about the histories and cultures, so that becomes apparent to you. So in many ways, if AI is this term of hype, where did the term emerge? So many think that the term AI emerged from Alan Turing. So not exactly, but Turing did write an essay in 1936, which was called Computing Machinery and Intelligence, where he did not propose the word artificial intelligence, but rather he asked the question, can computers think? And coined the term the imitation game, which I'm sure many of you now associate with Alan Turing correctly, because Benedict Cumberbatch had that wonderful movie. But effectively, what Turing started was called the Turing test, which was a test to understand whether you can judge what's a computer and what's a human. And he started questions around, and it's a beautiful essay. I would strongly recommend. The initial version of this essay, the draft of it, was written in the 1930s. He then published it in the 1950s. But the word artificial intelligence, not funnily, is actually an academic term, an academic marketing term. And if those terms can be brought together, that was used to get a grant proposal. So in the words of John McCarthy, who coined the term, he was in a turf battle with Norbert Wiener. Norbert Wiener was one of his colleagues who was at MIT, but colonized the term cybernetics at this point of time. John McCarthy was trying to create a set of conferences around human intelligence and reasoning, and he needed money. So he had to coin a term, and in his own words, he was trying to get an attractive term. He used stronger language. I'm just going to say attractive term. And he used the term artificial intelligence. He had 4 colleagues, Marvin Minsky from MIT, Nathaniel Rochester from IBM, and Claude Shannon from Bell Laboratories. And the plaque that you see on your screen is the plaque from Dartmouth, where this was brought about 50th anniversary of the word, right? So artificial intelligence has been used since 1956. So it's not a new term. It's been there for the last 75, 80 odd years. And we have gone actually through 3 hype cycles of artificial intelligence. The first AI hype cycle started out during the Cold War, when the US was obviously in a conflict with Soviet Russia, and they were desperately trying to find mechanisms through which Soviet language could be translated, so that their war, USA has been in wars for the last 100 or 150 odd years, not surprisingly. And they were trying to find ways to translate Soviet knowledge quickly. So machine translation became a major sort of funding area for DARPA Unfortunately, it wasn't very successful, but it does leave us with one major relic or a major legacy of it, which is Google Translate. And that stays with us even today. The second hype cycle was put forward in the mid 1980s, and I'm going to talk a little more in detail in the next slide, with the rise of what we call neural networks or as idea. Even though neural networks was first proposed in 1943 by Walter Pitt and McCullough in an essay on neural nodes, the idea came into fruition through someone called Geoffrey Hinton, who in the 1970s talked about neural networks. And as you might know, that current generative AI is based on something called neural network based deep learning. Now, then also at that point of time, it did not work out because neural networks require two things which were not available. They require data and compute. By compute, I mean computational infrastructure. None of that was available to the scale that we have right now. So that also failed. And it was such an epic failure that it lasted till the 2008 global financial crisis. And the past decade has inaugurated a new AI hype cycle. Even more significantly, the US and China have entered into global competition for AI supremacy comparable to the US-USSR's Cold War space race. And to the extent that right now, the amount of computation that we have with us is exponentially higher than what we started out with when in 2012 a major event happened, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So by the way, if you thought this idea of artificial intelligence is even 70 years old, the idea of creating artificial reasoning models, artificial intelligence in the way that we're talking about it, it's not, it's much, much older. For the last 500, 600 years, it's been going on. And again, this is very Western-centered ontology of artificial intelligence. It's also had its understanding across multiple places, countries beyond the West. So there's Hobbes, there's Leibniz, who creates a new reasoning language. Of course, Charles Babbage, who proposed the first general purpose computer, the analytical engine. He makes a blueprint of it. He doesn't create it. But the first computer programmer, of course, was this brilliant scholar and scientist, Ada Lovelace, who you also might know as Lord Byron's daughter. Or Lord Byron should rather be known as Ada Lovelace's father, because unfortunately we wipe away the history of gender and race also from the history of dominant technologies. So Lovelace writes the first program to calculate Bernoulli numbers. Gottlieb Frege restructures Leibniz and Boole. Alfred North Whitebread and Bertrand Russell published their first work on process philosophy, which leads, in fact, to Turing's work. We have 36, Turing prepares their draft. 40, McCulloch and Pitts point out the neural node, where they try to model human intelligence based on logic gates, 0 and 1 binary. Donald Hebb develops the stimulus for neurons. Alan Turing develops the Turing test. By the way, if you think that Turing tests are only carried out in computer labs, we do Turing tests every day. They are called CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA is an acronym, completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. So we are all doing Turing tests all the time in our lives. And then, of course, you had Marvin Minsky, McCarthy, Shannon, and Nathaniel Rochester starting out the word artificial intelligence as a term. But even all of this happened, there was a major change. There was this major movement that happened in 2012. But before that, it's useful to keep in mind the technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. So this is from Melvin Kranzberg, who points this out. And it's important to keep this in mind to understand the rise and flow of technology across a long period of time. For example, the first idea of neural network put into practice was by this scholar engineer at MIT called Frank Rosenblatt, who created this machine called Perceptron. Perceptron was the first active use or active proof of concept that neural networks could actually work to learn. So machine learning as a discipline came into play in 1957 when Marvin Minsky created the perceptron. Unfortunately, it was completely shut down by this paper that was created by a few of his colleagues at MIT, Marvin Minsky and Seymour Papert, on perceptrons, an introduction to computational geometry, which completely destroyed the idea of perceptrons or machine learning as a valid way to learn, basically because AI has gone through two different models of learning. One was basically what we understand to be the deductive model, which is based in a symbolic computation, where you give the computer rules and you expect the computer to be able to generate output based on those rules. And the current model, which is much more connectionist, inductive, where you give the machine enormous amounts of data and computational power, and you expect it to learn from that, right? And the learning is also a difficult term. The learning basically is to basically be able to make statistical probabilistic connotations or statistical probabilistic uh, expressions that come out of that kind of a structure. So now in the 1970s, Geoffrey Hinton proposed that neural networks could be used, and later on he moved to Toronto and kept working. But all I'm going to say is, if 1970s or late 1970s, early 1980s, Geoffrey Hinton was someone who proposed this idea, he stayed silent, or he went quite dark for the next 42 years, till about 2012, when another major event happened. And in 2012, we had this brilliant scientist from Stanford called Professor Fei-Fei Li, who, while working on her PhD, realized that the failure of neural networks to learn, and the ways that neural networks or current AI is based in basically three things: big data, neural networks, and GPUs. Right? Those are the three things that they are based in. But I'll come back to that in a moment. But Professor Fei-Fei Li understood that we were basically suffering from a lack of data, because the algorithmic techniques, support vector machines, Bayesian methods, weren't as successful, because Professor Fei-Fei Li proposed that we needed a really large enough data set of images, because she wanted to categorize the world into images, and she looked at visual intelligence as a way to think of artificial intelligence. So computer vision became the key way through which she was talking of artificial intelligence. And as you might see on your screen from the text, 2012 became a landmark year in the rise of deep learning, a machine learning approach involving multi-layered deep software architectures. Beginning in the 2000s, the increasing availability of data from the internet, alongside major improvements in hardware and computing power, enabled artificial neural networks to bear fruit 70 years after the initial conception. This confluence of factors, as Meredith Whittaker puts it, showed the commercial potential of DL, deep learning, along with the power of AI. Now, how did this come about? It's an interesting story. I'll take a minute to talk about it. So, just to rephrase again, Professor Fei-Fei Li worked across a 9-year period to create a database of 15 million images. That was called ImageNet. And those 15 million images were then given out to a competition, a free competition at Oxford, where scientists from all across the world were asked to put in their entries as to whether their models could actually become as close to human intelligence as possible. Now, human intelligence, again, I'll go into that a little later, but at least human efficiency. Let's use the word human sampling efficiency. First 2 years, the results were quite poor. But 2012, there was a new entry from someone called Alex Krzyzewski. Alex Krzyzewski submitted something called AlexNet, and AlexNet gave tremendous results, right? Almost 97% efficiency in recognizing images or object recognition. Now, going back 42 years, Alex Krzyzewski was a graduate student of Geoffrey Hinton, and Alex Krzyzewski used neural networks and 2 GPUs from NVIDIA as the computational framework. And those 2 GPUs, now you have orders of magnitude higher GPUs, right? So that effectively 2012 became the rise of what we understand to be GPU-based neural networks. 2017, there was another famous paper written called Attention is All You Need. And that led to the rise of something called GPTs, generative pre-trained transformers. And GPTs are the reason that you have ChatGPT and all of those models. So now, to effectively understand, you do realize that there are things that happened. The rise of data and compute, which happened because the internet came into play in the early 1990s. The rise of compute was because people were playing computer games. NVIDIA was essentially a chip company for computer games. So if you see rendering of visual images, if you've played Mario in the 1990s and you play Mario now, you will look at how the images are far more defined and sharp. That happens because something called parallel processing happens, right? Now, parallel processing, it was not expected, but it was just serendipitous that parallel processing is the same kind of technology that's required for neural networks. And so GPUs, graphic processing units, became the infrastructure through which we have what we call modern AI. So what I tried to do is give you a very short version of how we are at where we are right now. But of course, this is a very, very limited and simplified version. But if we have the opportunity, by the way, if you're interested, the paper ImageNet is this paper, right? It's on IEEE's website. I hope my screen is shared. You can see this. So ImageNet, a large-scale hierarchical image database, and this is still there. So you're welcome to have a look at it. And I would strongly recommend that if you're interested in this area, lovely paper to look at. So let's go back. I was playing with Google Translate today morning to look at how Bengali is translated, because I was trying to translate provocation, and provocation came to as Ushani Mulok, which I don't think is what provocation is, right? And which is also to tell you that all of these huge language, these kind of translational platforms are still very limited in terms of their operational language use, right? Which is why Platform Bengali matters as a project. So what is then this AI, right? I've talked about AI is not necessarily this massive beast, or AI is not this mythical creature or mythical technology. What is AI? So effectively, what we call as AI right now is generative AI. Generative AI is a very small part of something called deep learning. Deep learning is a very small part of something called machine learning. Machine learning is a smaller part of this huge umbrella artificial intelligence. And effectively, where we are right now is we have scratched about 5% of human intelligence. We are not even close to human reasoning. We have come to object recognition, which is around 200 milliseconds of cognition. 200 milliseconds of cognition is object recognition. And most of what we see as visual, we often hear this, right? If AI is just a text predictor, which is what it is, right? How is it able to generate images? That's because it translates images into text and text into what we call multidimensional vector spaces. And multidimensional vector spaces just work on numbers. So there's no real intelligence in this, right? It's mathematical minimization, right? You have an objective function which is optimized. There's mathematical minimization, but it is absolutely without question that we had tremendous growth in deep learning, right? The amount of growth that has happened in deep learning is tremendous, provides with enormous opportunities, but to appreciate those opportunities, like the deep learning workshop, I'm so happy that it's being called a deep learning workshop as part of this project, is deep learning provides with enormous opportunities, especially for multilingual digital humanities, multilingual digitality. And therefore, it is very important to demystify and demythologize the term AI to be actually able to appreciate its possibilities. In fact, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Going back to very old linguistics, which some of you might recognize, the word AI is a signifier, and the signified, which is the mental concept that's created in your mind, is currently being put through a huge range of connotative and denotative terms. We are often forgetting the denotative meaning, the actual meaning of it, and going into the imaginaries, the connotative spectrum of it, which is what happens with every word. But ultimately, what's the reality? The reality is that Gen AI, and this is from the MIT report of 2025, MIT's report says that there has been surprisingly almost 95% of enterprises are getting zero return. And why is that happening? I would like to opine here that that's happening because AI is becoming an empty signifier. It's an empty signifier where we're just trying to push in things. Other people have called it suitcase term, stochastic parrots, many different words. But ultimately, what I find most useful, one of the essays by a scholar called Jaron Lanier, who a brilliant computer scientist and a humanist, who wrote this beautiful essay in the New Yorker a few years ago, 2023, where he says, there is no AI. Because he says mythologizing the technology only makes it more likely that we'll fail to operate it well. And this kind of thinking limits our imaginations, tying them to yesterday's dreams. We can work better under the assumption that there is no such thing as AI. Instead, I think if we think of deep learning based neural networks, if we focus on the technology, we have much more to learn. We have much more to appreciate when we look at how machine learning actually is coming to everyday lives. And this is where I'm going to keep the talk short, and I have limited time, I know. So last few slides. So this is where I want to introduce you to this field that I currently belong to, or I'm trying to work in. The field is called critical AI studies. Some of the very representative scholarship in the field is put here. A beautiful essay that comes in American literature and a special issue, Critical AI, a Field Information, by Rita Rayleigh and Jennifer Reed. And it's not surprising why literary scholars and humanists are becoming critical AI study scholars, because AI needs to be understood as text. And why do I say text? Because text comes from the Latin word texere, which means interconnected, which is why textiles and text have the same etymological root. So AI is a network. It's a text that must be read. And therefore, machine learning, we have to look into its cultural lives as well to understand what it means for our technological selves and our technological societies. Another book that I would strongly recommend if you're interested in this field is Simon Lindgren's Critical Theory of AI. But if I'm trying to summarize what this field does, essentially AI, we're recognizing the reductive, even absurd aspects of the term AI and the magical thinking it perpetuates, allows for a kind of linguistic pragmatism by treating the term metonymically and engaging AI as an assemblage of technological arrangements and as a concept and ideology. And we'll talk a little bit about the assemblage in a moment. But effectively, why Platform Bengali speaks so much to this conversation on critical AI and digitality is because criticality in this instance means working across disciplines, domains, and fields of specialization, working not necessarily or strictly within an academic context, as IFA puts forward, going into the community, going into conversations with people, situated in proximity to the thing itself, cultivating some degree of participatory, very important word, participatory and embodied expertise, archival, ethnographic, or applied. I think Harshita mentioned different methodologies. In fact, what we need is a combination of methodologies, because real life problems don't come with disciplines attached. No one tells you solve this problem only with physics or literature or sociology. Real life problems come with multiple disciplines attached, right? So I want to I'm going towards this end by kind of pointing out what is this socio-technical assemblage that we call AI, right? The socio-technical assemblage that we call AI is a combination of three things: training data, learning algorithms, and model application. And because I don't have time to go into depth to all of this, I want to propose that you'll have a look at this brilliant essay by Matteo Pasquinelli, where he points out how a machine learns and fails, a grammar of error for artificial intelligence. Very simply, let's look at artificial intelligence like we looked at vernier calipers in school. So I'm an old school, quite old person, as you can understand. We had in our physics labs, we had vernier calipers. Vernier calipers had a zero error. And you had to always calibrate the zero error before the machine could give you the right reading. Now, the zero error in AI can creep into all of these things. Not only creep, but become a major part of. And that leads to overfitting, that leads to bias, that leads to hallucination. So, like we look at a telescope and see whether the curvature of the lens is good enough, so that if there is a problem, we have to calibrate. If you have to calibrate a vernier caliper for zero error, we need to calibrate AI. For that, we need humanists, we need social scientists, we need participants from all walks of life. And therefore, digital participants for the digital economy will be crucial in this conversation. I want to end by pointing out that there is enormous amount of scholarship in this area, but Global North focuses largely on bias, fairness, accountability, transparency, responsible AI. Global South focuses on post-colonial computing, decolonial computing, data colonialism, indigenous data sovereignty, feminist solidarity in design practices, data justice. And I want to quote a friend and good friend and scholar Ranjit Singh, who says one approach does not replace the other. We need both for further nuance. And I'm also happy to share that this is a collective that I've been fortunate to co-found with 4 of my colleagues since 2024. And this is the collective through which I know Prithu, which is called CLAIM, Critical Lens on AI in Majority Worlds, because we believe the future of AI lies in the necessity. And my screen suddenly went blank, so give me a quick moment so that I can read this. The future of critical AI studies lies in the necessity of critically analyzing AI in digitality within its human context, which often refuse easy categorization. Now, this collective has over 260 members right now. We run reading groups. And if you want to be part of the collective, please feel free to scan the QR code. I'll also put the link in your chat box. But just to end by saying, I'm so excited for Bhashascope, because Bhashascope does what we want to do. In a sense, Bhashascope extends the language of criticality to community-oriented participation. Often criticality is often uh, very limited to academia, and that is not very helpful. Bhashascope provides the ability to bring criticality into everyday conversation, and I'm excited that Prithu and the entire community, with the support from Professor Harshita, Professor Bibhuti, everyone's coming in to get this done together. This is brilliant. All the best. And just say, I believe we often ask, where is the future, right? And this is from William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer, and he coined the term cyberspace. I believe the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. And to evenly distribute that future, we need projects like Platform Bengali, and funding platforms and agencies and foundations like the India Foundation for Arts. And of course, brilliant and well-founded academics like Professor Bibhuti and everybody who's joined in. Thank you so much. Sorry for running a little over time, but thank you for the opportunity, Prithu.
Thank you so much. I think most of us, we were also spellbound. Like such a big history, just to plunge the entire history in such a short span of time. I think that itself requires a kind of command that we have just seen right now. Because as Dibyadyuti has rightly mentioned, he was talking about the telescope, the lens, the aperture. There is always room for error whenever we are using any instrument. So also I think it is also one of the caveats that we like take away with us, that Bhashascope we know is also like the scope, that whenever there is a concept of scope, something where we are measuring it, and that is a debate that most of the time we also have in IITs, because as you are also part of IIT system, you know, like the debate between quantitative and qualitative, the humanities and social science. So where do we draw a line? And as you have rightly mentioned, like the reality lies somewhere in between. We need both. We need all. The real life problems, they doesn't come with tags of disciplines. Like we can only solve it with a particular discipline itself. We have to bring all the disciplines together, and then only I think science people, like computer science students, mathematics students, English students, social science students, everyone, if everyone comes together, then only we can understand what is happening now, and what quantity, what data cannot understand, that can be understood. But because as Dibyadyuti rightly mentioned, this film, wonderful film, I would definitely recommend anyone to watch, Humans in the Loop. If we see the film, the very beginning of the film, there was this one 2 minutes maybe scene where we see the principal protagonist, one woman, he is looking at the screen for a capture, as he was also mentioning, and then for a while the capture's image itself drew her to faraway land, to a realm of memory, and for that the timer which was set there, that missed, and since she missed the timer, she also missed her job and livelihood opportunity maybe. So what memory can cause, and the fluidity, the plasticity that we have in certain sense, that makes us profoundly human. We are not just data points, as most of us researchers believe to do. And I think there platforms like IFA comes in a heavy way to fund in this underfunded territory called humanities research or arts research, where they're trying to bring the human value into it. And I thank Dibyadyuti like I can't thank much, as you can already understand. I am flabbergasting in certain sense, but I am so thankful to him. And I open now this entire podium to the audience. I believe there is a bit of time he can spare. Anyone, if you have any questions, queries, any kind of ideas, if you have, as I can see, many people are joining from different parts of the country, and it was also one of the aspirations for this title project. Bhashascope. Bhashascope is not only Bengali as a bhasha; it is among the bhasha as it is called Bhasha sphere. There are lots of bhashas and Bengali is just one among them, and they have interrelation in between. So if you have any suggestions, because Dibyadyuti has also extensively worked in other languages also, he is always in touch with many of the other digital humanities projects which have recently cropped up, or people where people are working in. So any one of you, if you have suggestions, feedback, questions, queries, anything, you can definitely just turn your microphone on, turn your camera on, and feel free to ask, please. Thank you.
Right. As we wait for questions, I just want to put the link to join claim in the chat box if you are willing and if you
Yes.
are free yourself. So I'll just put that. It's a WhatsApp group. From that, you can get access to our website, to our Google group. So if you're interested, please feel free to click on that and join. I'm very happy to answer questions, as Prithu said. But you're also welcome to write to me. And I'll put my email in the chat box as well. So that I know asking questions often in a public forum becomes quite intimidating, but don't be. If you have questions, please do. Please do ask, and I'll be happy to be in conversation.
Please do ask any questions.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah. Aishwarya, please.
Yeah.
Yes, you are
Hi,
indeed. Please go
sir.
ahead.
Please go ahead.
So my question is, yeah, you did cite Kranzberg's law of that technology is neither evil, like I don't know whether I'm saying it good, and neither it's neutral. So I wanted to ask a question, which is it's very much philosophical. So I don't know whether it's not technical at all. So lately, after seeing the later developments in last few weeks, and after reading the news on how Anthropic's Claude has been, accused of misidentifying the school in Iran, which was bombed. There has been a certain like questions of ethics that comes in the use of AI. No, so the problem is, as a scholar, humanities scholar, the world is moving very fast. The academia is moving very fast, and everybody is discussing about how to use AI and how to use it in order to make your work better. But also there is this ethical implication that is standing as a humanities scholar, at least for me, and how to come in. And then there is the questions of environmental impacts of AI, data centers, how it is causing water scarcity. And then there are wide movements that why happening online about uh, you know uh, uh, like on boycotting ChatGPT or boycotting AI at all. So, as scholars of humanities, I don't know where should we stand, and I'm still searching for an answer. And attending this talk was a part of it. And I know that you cannot completely avoid AI, or you cannot completely say that boycott AI, but how to use it ethically, and how to use what are the small little steps that humanities scholars can take in order to use AI ethically for their own research while considering all these factors. Do I get an answer for this? I don't know.
No, Aishwarya, thanks so much for that question. I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head, and I think there is no need to be apologetic to ask a philosophical question, because it's an exciting time to be a humanist, because rarely in the last century have we been asked what makes us human so many times, right? So it's an exciting time, also a scary time, also an anxious time to be a human and a humanist. Going back to your question around Claude and its use in the current Iran strikes, or its alleged use in the current Iran strikes, um, you are absolutely right that dominant technology can be used in any way. It can be used for good, for bad. Um, but we also need to recognize even things like GIS, which we digital humanities so very effectively, was originally used for mapping enemy targets. So the potential of technology to be used for terrible things is very high, which is why I think we need us, humanists and social scientists, and people who are stakeholders for humanity to be so part of this conversation, right? Which is why I think it's important to talk about this. Now, coming to your second question about the usage of AI, I think that's a very good question, because beyond personally, Aishwarya, I think the need is not just for responsible or ethical AI, it's the need for contextual AI, right? But what do I mean by contextual AI? By contextual AI, I mean AI or modern AI, right? Neural network based deep learning platforms that are based in local data, that are based in local affordances, and that are based in the lack of exploitation of local resources. Now, my answer to that question is, when should we use AI, is of course an individual one. But like we don't use a rocket ship to travel between Bombay and Delhi, because that's not, the cost benefit ratio is too high and too extractive. We still use a train or a plane if we can afford. I think we should only use AI when the need is there, right? And that needs to be predicated and understood through frameworks that are created through very democratic conversations, right? For example, I see the potential of deep learning to challenge Western logics and Western epistemes of knowledge formation as tremendous, because the creation of new archives, the ability to transfer those archives into existing canons of knowledge, is absolutely brilliant, right? And that provides us with so many opportunities to challenge the canon that we have been used to, that has been taught to us, right? So that is tremendous, and I think that is a very good and effective use. And if we also need to think about how to make sustainable computational infrastructure, right? So data centers that do not take away land from minority populations, data centers that do not take away the livelihoods of people engaged in a particular work. So those are questions, as you said, these are again conversations, which is why I feel the kind of collective that we have started is exactly about that. It's trying to create that conversation again to hopefully provide advocacy and make change happen in this context. I'm very to be in a longer conversation, but thank you so much for that question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for the question. And I think I will just add on to that as a real life example how AI has been extremely democratic to like offer lots of these archiving endeavors. For instance, the website that you all have seen that I have created with my brother Parthiv, who is also here. He's a computer science student, but for 3 days he had exams going on. So me, a humanities student with zero knowledge in code, right now can create a full-fledged website with backend development and front-end development entirely from scratch, which I think allows us to do something which earlier we were unable to. So if we think teleologically about the end result, the result is a digital archive. And if the target is to archive something, and the means to archiving, I don't think works that in that way. So I think there is this democratic aspect of AI as well, because there is this argument also going on that in few years only the rich people, they will be able to, again coming back to the question of art and artist, or who can have a original Rembrandt painting or a Mona Lisa original, maybe a painter's painting. Only rich can afford to have an original art piece. Others, they can only make art on AI. So AI is also creating this cheap market in certain sense. So I think that is also one aspect to say. Yeah, Dibyadyuti, I
I
can
would
see something.
No, I would slightly push back on that and say that I don't think AI is democratic yet, but it's a
Right.
constant effort. But I'm going to respond by drawing on a very popular culture quote that we all know, that with great power comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man once said, right? So if
Yeah.
you are able to create something so quickly that had taken years and years for artists to make in the past, you must be cognizant of the very technology and what it does, what it comes from,
Absolutely.
right? And therefore, when you are using ChatGPT to create Studio Ghibli reanimations, you have to realize that Studio Ghibli's artists have worked on it, and whether that art has come to them through some form of license, has the software. Because
Absolutely.
I think it's absolutely, I agree with you that machinic creativity and human creativity can come together, because creativity cannot be the bastion of elites. Creativity needs to be democratized. And I think there are wonderful scholars like Refik Anadol. Refik Anadol is a Turkish American artist who takes in all of the unsupervised data from MoMA and asks the machine learning system to dream, right? So Unsupervised is the name of the project that Refik Anadol worked, which create possibilities. So all I'm saying is that there are possibilities, but there are also genuine fears and anxieties that Aishwarya also pointed out, which we have to be cognizant
Absolutely.
of. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Dibyadyuti. I think I totally back you on that. Yeah, thank you, thank you. I totally back you on that. What I was trying to mention here is like some of the sophisticated, for instance, say for instance, platform like IFA. What we are trying to do here is we are trying to come out of the academic jargon in certain sense and trying to disseminate the knowledge where the accessibility might be like the jargons might be a threshold for accessibility. So I think in certain sense, AI can have that effect. I am totally cognizant about the fact that Ghibli, the like years after years, what people have painstakingly drawn in hand, that we cannot purloin just from there, and what is largely AIs are doing. But I am also saying, like there can be a certain kind of
Absolutely.
accessibility that
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
we are
Because, for
like, yeah,
example, absolutely, Pritu. Because, for example, I teach a lot of second language students in my classes. I have a lot of Chinese students, Vietnamese students, and many of these generative AI platforms have allowed them to overcome the hesitation of writing a first draft in English, right? Where they can put their ideas and then they can have a first draft generated, right? All I'm saying is there is a need to for the human machinic assemblage to come together,
yes,
with the human fully recognizing that it's a machinic assemblage, but not some kind of spectral technology that is beyond us, right? To appreciate
right,
the materiality of that machine and appreciate the power of human creativity can together be very, very fruitful. But for that, we need the ability to recognize that critically, right? That's all I'm asking for, or
absolutely.
campaigning for in many ways.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dibyadyuti. And I think with that note, I think this is the productive space that we were aspiring for. The debates, discussions, and points and counterpoints that should come, because we are also on the cusp of adopting a newer technology. We are on the cusp of just like it is just like this bifurcation. We are standing at the crossroad where we don't know yet, like what the world is leading, to what extent we should use AI and use we should not. So it also in certain sense also comes with the philosophy behind using the AI. When I was using it, I also had this thing in mind that if it is a project that also incorporates and engages with technology, I should also make use of the technology in certain sense. So the intentionality behind using something, that also I think should come. And of course I should delineate the like the outline that the outline he has given here, the cognizance that we should take about humans' labor, the toil, the years of human effort that is just in certain sense purloined right now. So with that note, I think if anyone have any more questions, we just have 5 minutes more, I think. You can wait. Is it okay if we stay here for 5 more minutes and ask if someone have any question?
Sure, sure.
Oh, thank you so much. So, is there anyone who wants to ask any further question? He has given the claims WhatsApp group. Please feel free to join. I have been a member and it has been a wonderful experience. I got to learn wonderful texts, wonderful discussions that happens there. And also he has shared his email ID. Please do reach out to him if you have any further question. And I think with this spirit, we should keep the conversation rolling. It is a wonderful start. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
inaugurating the
Inviting me.
session so wonderfully. I couldn't have imagined a better speaker than you to inaugurate it. Thank you so much. And thank you, Harshita. Thank you, everyone, all who have been here so far. Thank you, uh, thank you, Professor Dr. Rodriguez as well. He's also joining from IFA. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. I can't thank all of you enough, and we just can look forward to. I think many of these kind of conversations will come up, and we will in the upcoming sessions we will dive deep into the language as it is, like Bengali. And one of the things I think I should like refer to just as a parting note, I was extremely impressed to when I sent this email to Dibyadyuti for the first time, that he uses his Bengali name in the Bengali font, Dr. Dibyadyuti Roy, as you can also see on the screen. This coexistence of both the English version and the Bengali version, to keep them both side by side. I think that might be one of the models that we can adopt also for us, to make it accessible to the larger audience who doesn't speak in Bengali, who doesn't have the access, but also at the same time don't lose our roots where we are coming from, which is Bengali. So with that spirit, I think our website Bhashascope also wants to embody that. That's why it is bilingual website. So we try to just bring in all the conversation in both languages so that everyone can participate in that. So with all of that, I think we should bid adieu now. Thank you, Dibyadyuti again. Thank you so much for being
Thank
such
you,
a
thank you
wonderful
too. Thank
supporter.
you to IFA and the entire team, and lovely and all the best. And hopefully, we'll be able to have conversations. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.